Okay. Okay. All right, this is gonna be a demonstration video for incorporating different textures with your, with your SI number 4 with your artwork. So, okay, so at this point now, you should have had your artwork color, with the flat color. So, so you want to just make sure you have some main colors for your areas that you want to add textures to. So but basically what we're going to do with these areas that we colored in, though, we're going to add textures on top of them. So I do notice a lot of you guys artworks this year, or a lot of your artworks this year, it's you have these areas that you colored in, you drew in, but there's certain ways we can add textures to your artwork to, kind of create a little bit more pop, give it a little bit more oomph. So, add a little bit more detail to the work. So, I was going to show you guys that with SI number 4, where we're focusing on texture. Okay, so I was going to show you guys a couple of different ways on how to approach texture. And, if you don't have the setup one way, I'm going to show you another way too. Okay, so, if you look at your layers window, obviously, I usually encourage you guys to try to separate all your colors into different layers. Now, if you don't do this, though, it's not the end of the world. If you have it all in one layer, that's fine as well. Okay, but it definitely will make it a lot easier because you can use the clipping mask for these areas when you add your textures or details to things if needed. Okay, so I was just going to show both ways. It's just going to be a little bit more work if you had to use, if you color everything on one layer, everything's on a separate layer. It'll be, it'll be much easier to add your textures because, you just do a clipping mask on it. Okay, but very simple though. Even before you start incorporating your textures, you definitely want to, think about textures you can use, or even the different brushes that the program has to offer. So there's so many different kinds of brushes you can add as textures for your artwork. So, just take a quick glance at these different textures, and, it wouldn't even hurt to write down some textures that you really like, that you might want to use for certain parts of the drawing. And then you can incorporate that language in your process documentation as well. So, it doesn't hurt to do those things as well. Okay, but I was going to show you guys two different ways. So we'll do one way with the, I'll write this down on here. So this is going to be textures with brushes. Okay, so now I think most of you guys would probably do this approach where you're using the textures with the Procreate brushes. Okay, so Procreate has a lot of different brushes you can use as textures. So, there's actually some textures that you could use for the, earth or vegetation or grass. There's actually a mountain texture as well. And then there's actually some water textures. But, you just have to be kind of careful with water textures because some actually physically apply kind of acts kind of like a watercolor. So, and you can also look at some other ones too that you might want to incorporate. But in most cases, though, if you're doing something elemental like mines, or they probably have a texture that's close to it or similar to something you might want to use. Okay, but I'm just gonna go kind of with the straightforward one where I'm using one of these textures here, for the planners. So, okay, real simple though. If you have a clipping mask, you can just go on this layer here, click plus, add a clipping mask to it, and then you can just apply the different textures. So when you're applying textures though, okay, I really want you to think about your lights and darks and values. Okay, especially when you're using the actual brush itself. So you can have one direction be your area where it's a little bit darker, and then the other area could be your areas of highlights. But to create convincing texture in your work of art, you have to think about your lights and darks and values. So, let's just say my light source is coming from this direction on the earth. So I'm gonna do this on another layer. So, my light source is coming this way. So this is where all my dark shadows would be. Okay, so to create, simply if you want to create some convincing textures, you can, do it in the direction of the direction of the light. So I'm just gonna eyedrop this dark green again. So, and then I'm gonna encourage you guys to try to use some of these different brushes, because I could use like a little painterly brush if I wanted to, but if I just have the texture that I need, it kind of like creates like the work for me, because I could actually use like a paintbrush, and let's just say I wanted to use I don't know, like a wet acrylic. I could actually try to do these little kind of little brown things like this. That's a little bit more work to have to do something like that to kind of imply that texture. So physically, like, that's what you have to do in traditional art is use those textures to do that. But since we have like a nice texture brush, you can do that as well. So you have your darks. If I wanted to push this dark, simply I could just go darker on this darker value here. So just keep it real simple though. I would just kind of just use the color wheel, same direction to the top right or top left is the lightest area, the most saturated, and then the darks on the bottom. So it's a really easy way just to add some textures to it. And use a fairly big brush, but not too big though. And then your highlights, you can bring the highlights even further. And if you want to even go up like on the color, I could do like a yellow green to make that pop out more. I can do the yellow green to pop that part out more. So that's textures with the brushes. Now, for some reason, you don't have a clipping mask. So let's just say hypothetically I didn't have this clipping mask here. Just gonna turn this off. So this is like kind of how it would look if I had it on another layer. So let's just say like I wanted to move it over here. So this is kind of how it would look if you were to color it in. So not the end of the world though. The only thing you would have to do though is I probably would lower the opacity a little bit. Or actually, as you're working though, you're gonna have to go back with the eraser. All right, go back with the eraser and just kind of erase the edges. So some of those parts would be a little hard to see though. But this is like kind of what you have to do if you didn't separate the layers. So I just lower the opacity a little bit just so you can see the edges, but you can erase this part here, that part. I'm trying to be a little bit quiet because someone's knocking on my door. I'm trying not to answer the door now since I'm making a video. But you kind of get the idea though. I just have to kind of clean this up. So, and then you kind of have to technically do this with the, what's it called? The picture image one, but, just a little bit more work though. So, okay. Move this back over here though, just because I'm not going to clean this up. But, so I'm going to put this back in my green area here. Yeah, but that's what you technically would have to do. Let's just have a clipping mask back and just kind of pop it in like that. Okay, same ideas with the water too. I can go with like a blue here, go darker on the value, do water. I usually like to use the wet sponge. Oops, I should apply it on the wrong one. So same thing, plus. And let's just say I didn't want to do a clipping mask, I just did this like that. Oops, it's a little too big. So, kind of create like this water texture. Go a little darker here. So I'm gonna go up on the color wheel. So usually it's lighter value on the top. So a little bit blue there. Okay. And then just go back with the eraser and just erase. So this is like if you didn't have the clipping mask working. Really easy, just more work, a little bit more work, but it's the same job done. Or if you have like the clipping mask, just add it. Easy. Okay, so that's with textures. Now, if you or that's with the textured brushes. So this one right here. Let me see my battery. Okay, we're doing good. So this is with textures and image. Okay. So basic principle of this one is, you know, we're gonna add some of these textures from like the broccoli and then the water, you know, in my artwork. So I want to say it's okay to use pictures online. The only thing I would just be really careful about is, you know, like let's just say I'm looking for like broccoli. You know, I can just look up a broccoli and then just save the image. You know, at least find like a nice high quality image you can kind of cut apart and use in your artwork. You know, I would just think of like textures that, you know, kind of work out really well with like unusual things, because you know, I think like the texture broccoli is kind of neat for like the earth. And you know, if you kind of mentioned that in your process documentation, you know, like you know, we try to incorporate textures from like actual physical things. You know, the AP scores would be like, oh, that's a really creative way of like how you use to incorporate textures. You know, rather than looking for like a, you know, I could just look for like, you know, like a grass texture or something. Like, you know, that's kind of boring. So, you know, just be kind of creative with like the textures that you're finding. You know, I could just do like a cross texture, but that's kind of boring. So that's kind of why I chose like the broccoli. I didn't even type in broccoli texture. I just found like a close-up of a broccoli. So, you know, you want to do like little things like that just because, you know, definitely will help to improve on your artwork, and, you know, that sparks like the creativity. And let me see. Yeah, I think you can find pictures online. Just be careful though if you plan on using like certain patterns. So for example, if you have like a pattern where it's like, I mean, these are pretty straightforward ones, but like something like this, I would be really careful of using just because this is like someone else's artwork. Same thing with, I mean, I guess you could use this one, but you know, you definitely want to find a way to transform the texture to make it your own though. So I would just kind of be careful of like using patterns, but textures you can kind of get away with it. You know, we'll talk a little bit more about certain patterns of textures you can use, but this one's pretty simple though. So I want to say you can't really use the clipping mask for this, but I mean, we could try. I was gonna use this one example here though, so I was gonna click on the this layer right here. I'm gonna work on the separate ones on this layer. So all you gotta do is just add those images on there. So insert photo for that broccoli again. So real important, make sure it's a nice high res image, because like the problem is if it's blurry, it won't work out that well. So I just would kind of like have it cover the whole thing, and then all you gotta do is just kind of play around with the overlay. So you know, we're just gonna click on the image, click on the overlay. So I'm gonna find like a texture that will kind of go with the green parts that would make it look nice. So in this case, like the hard light's pretty good. Linear light you could use. Yeah, I could probably make this image a little bit smaller. Plus, after you add the what's it called, the overlay, though, it'll be a lot easier to erase. So this one you have to kind of manually erase. So just like before, though, yeah, this one you want to take your time, erase the whole thing. And you know, then you can use that texture that you want to use. So, okay, but you kind of get the idea though. I'll just erase all these spots here that I don't want green. Obviously, I gotta erase all this white too. So So instead, actually implying the texture with like lights and darks, this is a little bit more of like you'll have to just kind of clean it up. So I was kind of curious, so let me see if I can do it as a clipping mask, because that would be kind of neat. So I'll make a duplicate of this here. Maybe move it down here for this layer. Move it over here for the areas that I colored in. And oh, I flipped the wrong pictures on here, so this needs to go there and this needs to go down there. Okay, so let's try that again. Let me undo all this because now it's like really weird. Okay, let me try that again. So this image is over here now. So we gotta move it there. And okay, now we're gonna try the clipping mask. Oh, okay. Yeah, so the clipping mask actually works real well with that. So, if I were to manipulate this even more, I could lower the opacity if it's too strong. So just be careful of having like a lot of contrast in the textures. And then you can kind of play around with like the look of it. Okay, but you would kind of do like the same thing with the water too. So, you can put in the bottom layer, add the water. So I couldn't think of anything creative for water, but in some cases you might have to just add the actual texture itself there. And, if possible, you actually take your own textures like, as photography. You can use that as like processing, like, oh, I found this really cool texture of like, broccoli, or it's like some textures of the grass. It's kind of hard to take textures of water, so that's the only reason I found actual water for this one. But you apply your own textures to like the artwork, then that'll definitely help out a lot more with like the it'll show like more creativity with your work. Okay, same idea though. Eraser, erase the edges. I'm just kind of going with this overlay just because it's easy to see and erase. And like I showed you before, if you have your like the, oops, maybe I put this one here, move it over, and if you have like those areas colored in already, you can just, all my things are like kind of mixed up right now. If you have it colored in already, then you can just add the clipping mask to it. That's kind of weird though, because like my outline is like all on one layer. So this one I have to just lower the opacity. And there we go. Okay, but it should look something like this though when you're done though, where it looks kind of more cleaner like this with 1 and 2, like I showed you guys in the world before. Okay, but that's just some different ways you can add textures using textures images or textures with the the Procreate brush. All right. Okay, and then in terms of like textures though, you don't have to incorporate on everything. I would just kind of pick some mirrors and make it pop out, and just use it where you feel like it's most suitable to add more details to your artwork. All right.